Matt Miguez has plenty on his mind, and he's ready to share it with the world. It's time to hear the Miguez Mindset.
Welcome into another edition of the Miguez Mindset. Matt Miguez here. The MLB draft day one is in the books. You saw quite a few players from LSU go off the board, including some history. We'll get to that in a second. A Louisiana Ragin Cajun went off the board as well, and I'll fill you in on the newest Houston Astros. So first, let's start with the LSU Tigers. If you count high school commitments that went in the MLB draft, the Tigers lost 5 players last night. Dylan Cruz going number 2 to the Washington Nationals. Paul Skeens going number 1 overall to the Pittsburgh Pirates. First time in MLB draft history that the same school has produced the number 1 and number 2 pick. Blake Mitchell, the high school commit out of Sinton, Texas, he goes number 8 overall to the Kansas City Royals. And then you had Ty Floyd go number 38 in comp balance round A to the Cincinnati Reds. Grant Taylor goes to the Chicago White Sox early on in the second round as well. So those are 4 current LSU players and a high school commit that will not wear the purple and gold. Blake Mitchell was kind of interesting because if you looked at most mock drafts and prospect rankings heading into the draft, he was in the 30s. Some even had him, upper 40s. But to see him go in the top 10 was really flooring. I mean, don't get me wrong, the guy's talented. He's a great bat. He's a great defensive player. The analysts were talking last night about how he could make it to the bigs in the next 2 years strictly because of how he is as a defensive catcher. But to see him go top 10 after him being ranked in the 30s was really kind of surprising. It was also surprising to see Paul Skeens go number 1 overall. Not that he didn't deserve to, but there was thoughts for weeks that the Pirates wouldn't pay what it took to get a guy like Paul Skeens or Dylan Cruz, which is why they'd kind of shifted, or at least we thought that they had shifted their focus to Wyatt Langford or maybe one of the high school kids, Max Clark, Walter Jenkins. But you end up drafting Skeens, which I think was a very good move by the Pirates, because what that does now, you're in playoff contention. If you look at the MLB at the All-Star break, the Pirates are still in it. And now you can bring a guy like Skeens, who I fully believe is pro-ready. You can bring him to the show. I don't know that he's going to go to the show immediately. I think he's going to have a couple of starts in the minors before he gets there. But I said it on my Twitter page last night, and I'll say it again. I would not be surprised if Paul Skeens is pitching for the Pittsburgh Pirates by the end of the month. I think he's that close to being ready to play in the pros. You saw his game was just steps above everybody else in college baseball. And that's no knock on Rhett Lauder or Hurston Waldrop or any other great pitcher in college baseball this year. But there was just a different level to what Paul Skeens was able to do for LSU. A fastball that was constantly hitting 97 plus, a great changeup, a great slider. He just has the stuff that you need to be successful at the next level, and I think the Pirates saw that. They were willing to pay for that. It's rumored that they signed Paul Skeens for around $9.25 million, so just barely under slot value. So that was a strong move by the Pirates to go get Paul Skeens number 1 overall. And then you look at the Nationals who snagged Dylan Cruz at number 2. If the Nationals were in a different situation, I could see Cruz playing in the MLB this year, but the Nationals are sitting at 32-54. I think they're just too far out of it at this point. Now, is it out of the realm of possibility that they get a wild card? No, they're currently 14 games back of a wild card, but that's a lot of ground to make up in 2.5 months. So I don't know that it would be worth bringing in Dylan Cruz. I think he gets some work in the minor leagues for the rest of this season, goes through an offseason, goes through a spring training, and I think you see him on the opening day roster for the Washington Nationals in 2024. Talked about Mitchell a little bit, a great catcher for the Royals. He could make some waves in their minor league system, but being a high school kid, it'll be 2 or 3 years before he's in the show. And then Ty Floyd going to the Cincinnati Reds. He went a little lower than most people thought that he would, but still, 38th overall, comp balance round. It's technically a first-round pick. So a strong move there by the Reds to bolster that pitching staff. He's a guy that, again, playing for a playoff team in the MLB, I'm not going to say he's as surefire as Skeens to be in the league before season's end, but maybe a September call-up if he plays well in the minors in his first couple outings, and he's been red hot in his last couple outings for the Tigers, including that record-breaking 17 strikeout performance for the Tigers against Florida. Then you look at a guy like Grant Taylor, who going into last summer was the second best pitcher in LSU's rotation, not named Paul Skeens. And, he gets hurt, goes with Tommy John surgery, doesn't pitch at all in the 2023 season, but still proved enough in the time that he did play in Baton Rouge to be a second-round draft pick. Some people thought that even though he would be drafted in the second round, that he would return to LSU to maybe bolster that draft stock. But look, you get drafted in the top 55, 60 pitches. 55, 60 selections. I can't see how he doesn't sign and get his pro career started. You got to be happy for a kid like that who's been through so much. To still overcome it and be a second-round draft pick is really just awesome to see. And then for the Cajuns, Carson Roccaforte goes 66th overall to the Kansas City Royals. Look, Carson participated in the scouting combine over in Arizona, had a great showing there that bolstered his draft stock for sure. He is now the fourth highest Cajuns player ever to be taken in the MLB draft. You've had one first rounder back in 1972, and then you had a second rounder in 85 and a second rounder in 95. But both of those second rounders were picked higher in the round than Carson Roccaforte's 66th overall. Fun fact, he was picked one spot ahead of where Ron Guidry was selected. Ron Guidry was a 67th overall pick in his MLB draft. Carson also the first Sun Belt player to go off the board in this year's draft. He's a guy that, gets comped a lot to Andrew Benintendi, and I can see that as a guy who his swing is geared for contact. He makes a lot of good decisions. He's a great defensive center fielder. He can play left field. He can play right field. You could probably put him in the infield in a pinch. He played well at first base for the Cajuns in years past. So he is a very versatile guy that can make a lot of good things happen for an organization. He's a quiet worker. He's going to put his head down. He's going to grind it out. He's going to get to work. And I think that a team like the Royals, who have kind of been middling over the last couple of years, they have young talent like Bobby Witt Jr. You bring in a Carson Roccaforte, you bring in a Blake Mitchell. The future looks bright in Kansas City. And then you look at a guy like Bryce Matthews, the 28th overall selection by the Houston Astros, the shortstop out of Nebraska. Look, he's a guy that hit 20 home runs and had 67 RBIs this past year in the Big Ten. Very strong hitter, good speed as well, 20-plus stolen bases on the season. He's a guy that can play middle infield. He can play either shortstop or second base. I know a lot of people probably thought, why are you drafting a shortstop when you have a 25-year-old starter in Jeremy Pena? Well, this is a guy that you could look to be Jose Altuve's replacement at second base. He could be a fill-in guy for Pena at shortstop. Or, and this is where I could see him fitting in, the analysts were talking last night about how he has a lot of experience at center field. The center field position is not set for the Houston Astros. You have Chas McCormick, who's done some really good things. You have Jake Myers, who's been good at times as well, but there's no structure and there's no set position there for the Astros. So Bryce Matthews could compete over the next couple of years to be that center fielder for the Houston Astros, or like I mentioned, the middle infield. So there's a lot of versatility there as well, which I think is very important for the Houston Astros going forward with one of the top farm systems in Major League Baseball. Now, going back to Dylan Cruz getting picked second overall by the Washington Nationals, following his selection, he met with the media and he talked about what it means for him to be the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah, first of all, it's an awesome feeling. I'm very blessed. I'm very, very thankful to have this opportunity. But the past couple of weeks have been a little crazy. Just I'm over there. We had to compete for a national championship in Omaha, and that was awesome. Just a true blessing. And then I took some time off, kind of clocked out a little bit, went down to the beach, just hung out for a little bit. But now we're here. We got the draft. We had the draft here, and a lot of people, a lot of friends and family. So great group of crowd that we had here. It was just an awesome day.
Also, looking at Dylan Cruz, a guy that was a top prospect in the draft out of high school, coming out of Florida, withdrew his name, decided to go to LSU, become a 2-time SEC Player of the Year, Perfect Game National Freshman of the Year, Golden Spikes Award winner, and a national champion. He talked about his decision to go to college instead of the MLB draft.
Yeah, looking back, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life for sure. There was a lot of gamble in that. It was a hard decision as an 18-year-old, and looking back, best decision I've ever made. And I would encourage kids to do that and trust their guts for sure.
Day 2 of the MLB draft coming later this afternoon, rounds 3 through 10. Cameron Johnson is a high school commit to be on the lookout early here in day 2 as a guy that could be snagged up for the MLB draft. Trey Morgan's name could be in that mix today. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw another Cajun go in the top 10 rounds. Maybe a Julian Brock gets selected here today. A couple of names to look out for there. There could be a surprise Tiger or 2. We'll see what happens with that. Nate Ackenhausen is a name that could get thrown around there. Riley Cooper had a strong second half to the year. He could be drafted as a relief pitcher. There's a lot to kind of pay attention to and a lot to look out for. We'll keep you updated on our website, ESPNSouthwestLouisiana.com, with our MLB draft tracker. Anytime somebody from LSU, Louisiana, McNeese, or a high school commit for any one of those programs gets selected in the draft, we will let you know again on our website. And you can head to our social media channels as well at ESPN SWLA. We'll be back on Wednesday talking some football here in the local area. We'll start previewing positions for each teams and get you set for the 2023 regular season right here on the Miguez Mindset.